Hey, this is Brandon Vietti, one of the producers of Young Justice, and you're listening to Whelmed, the Young Justice Files.
Recognized, Uncle Walker, D01. Recognized, Emily of Arden, D12.
Hello, team, and welcome to Scream Something, Volume 6. My name is Rich, and I'm here with my co-host, Emily.
Hey, everybody. In Scream Something, Rich and I will be sharing our initial thoughts and reactions for the episodes of Season 3 that were released last Tuesday. There will be plenty of Aster in these episodes, but we'll be saving our deeper analysis for the full episode breakdowns we have planned for after the season finale.
And I'm guessing we're too old. Wow. When did that happen?
So it is decided. The covert team will now consist of Miss Martian, Superboy, Tigress, Halo, 13, Forager, and Terra, while Beast Boy will lead Wonder Girl, Blue Beetle, Kid Flash, Static, and Geoforce in this new public squad, but still covertly answer to the League through Miss Martian. Agreed?
Agreed.
And with all out of the way, let's hand it over to Emily for...
Hello, Megan.
The titles of this week's episodes are First Impression and Early Warning. The release dates were July 9th and July 16th of 2019. The in-episode dates are December 1st through 21st. The directors were Mel Zwire and Vinton Huke, and the writers were Brandon Vietti and Greg Weisman.
Just in time for your next mission.
Episode 17 begins in the Atlantic Ocean, where we see one of the Reach ships from last season light up underwater. After the credits, we cut to the Watchtower, where Beast Boy is making a speech, insisting that they need a public version of the team to better combat the ongoing meta-trafficking thing. It takes some convincing, but the adults in the room eventually agree to his pitch, and thus a new team of teen heroes, including Beast Boy, Static, Kid Flash, Blue Beetle, Geoforce, and Wonder Girl, is officially stepping into the spotlight. Beast Boy also shows everybody the new team's base of operations, which is apparently the premier building, which he bought with all that Space Trek 3016 money. And since you can't let 6 teenagers live together unsupervised, Dr. Jace volunteers to be the group's new den mother.
That's so kind. So kind of her.
So kind.
I didn't all grind my teeth as soon as she started talking.
It's fine. Everything's fine. We then cut over to Brooklyn, Maine, where the Reach appear to be attacking. Aquaman shows up to stop them, but when that fails, Beast Boy's team Zeta's in to help. The ensuing fight gets live-streamed by several teenage girls, but after the enemy is defeated, the Reach pilots are revealed to actually just be members of Intergang. And despite stopping the ships, the team gets arrested for their efforts. However, another Reach ship arrives on the scene on autopilot and responding to a distress signal from one of the defeated ships, so the team decides to break out of custody to take it down. Blue is able to take control of the main Reach ship and pilot it toward the park to crash land where no one will be injured, and the day is saved and the newly minted outsiders don't get arrested. Throughout all of this, back in Star City, Artemis, Violet, and Terra are having one final sleepover before the girls move into the tower with the rest of the team. And after putting Leon to bed, we see Tara text someone that the outsiders are part of the team and the League and asks for her orders, to which the response is simply, "Your time will come," and there's nothing ominous about that at all. And finally, in Gotham, we get the full story as that whole secret society of team leaders from back in Triptych informs us that the League was aware of the attack by Intergang beforehand and let Aquaman throw the fight so they could send in Beast Boy's new team. And despite a suggestion from Calder, McGann insists that Garfield shouldn't be included in these whole little secret leader little meetings. A lot happened. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how well that goes. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's a very condensed version of all the stuff that went down.
It is, absolutely. I'm so glad this next episode's real lighthearted.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fun.
It's
great.
all fine.
It's great.
We roll right into episode 18. That starts with a recap from Courtney Whitmore about the Outsiders' recent activities. The Outsiders head off to Cuba with Fred, Violet, and Tara are off to school on the East Coast from the West Coast. But before they can leave, Dr. Jace informs Halo that according to her research, Halo is dying and only has a few months left to live.
Super trustworthy. A super trustworthy scientist lady.
Yeah, I have so many thoughts. Yeah. In Cuba, Clarion's executing Project Rutabaga, aka Project Cucumber. I'm not sure what that thing was. By awakening teenagers' metagenes with magic and then applying a mystic control brand before adding them to, a horrifying meta-powered flesh golem thing. The Outsiders then intervene, taking on Clarion, while also trying to hold the Cuban authorities at bay. While the teens try to subdue the metateen creatures, Zatanna arrives on the scene to help. She successfully uses magic to separate the teens back into their original form, and then frees the kids from Clarion's control. Zatanna then teleports herself and Clarion to the Tower of Fate, because that's something she can do, trapping him inside. Back in the U.S., we find out that Halo has blown off training to hang out with Harper Row. That goes well. And at Mount Justice, we see the two of them hanging out, drinking, and playing with a gun, and making out. Yeah, we have thoughts on that too.
Into it.
However, the two of them are eventually caught by the police. Back in Hollywood, Tara's training with Artemis and has flashbacks to training with Deathstroke. While Artemis is supportive, Tara gets defensive about her previous quote-unquote training. McGann picks up Halo from Happy Harbor Police Station, but Harper's staying in a holding cell until her dad comes to get her, maybe? Halo doesn't want to talk about pretty much any of it, and I understand. Back in Taos, the Outsiders deliver the new metateens to the Metahuman Youth Center, including one girl who grew gills, and for whom Calder will need to make alternative arrangements. Oof, I got thoughts on that one too. Ed decides to join the Outsiders to provide hope for the youth center, and the rest of the team agrees. And according to Courtney Whitmore, the Outsiders are trending worldwide and are officially, quote, bigger than the Justice League, unquote, noted.
That won't have any lasting implications upon the rest of the season. It's fine.
Interesting. There's so much going on, and both Emily and I have had very intense couple of weeks ourselves. So we're going to unpack this now in the Scream Something, and then we're going to save the deeping diving, because there's got to be more going on than we even see right now for later. Let's get on to what Aster we felt.
Superboy, are you alright?
I'm fine. Feeling the Aster.
The Newsgirl Legion. I didn't see that coming. That was interesting.
Explain them to me, please.
Okay, so, all right, so you have the Guardian, right? Jim Harper in the comics was originally a police officer, and his first appearance was actually in the Newsboy Legion, which I think was a backup feature for one of the comics. I'd have to look that up. So the Newsboy Legion were orphans, street orphans that sold newspapers, but they also, went on adventures. And it was Tommy Tompkins and Big Words and Gabby and another one named Scrapper. And then there was one named Flip. I like Flip because Flip was like their aquatic adventure specialist as a kid. He was like a really good swimmer. So what was kind of funny, like Gabby calls the other character, Big Words, and then uses her real name, and I can't remember what that was. But also Big Words' catchphrase was, "I'll be super amalgamated," because that's just hilarious that's actually showed up in the show. But also they took that and they all merged it, they made Big Words look like Velma, basically, from Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, they did, didn't they?
And Tommy Tompkins kind of dressed a little, got a Fred thing going on with the white outfit, and then Gabby is giving me some Daphne vibes. Interested to see what Scrapper looks like. So I'm watching this, and of course Brandon Vietti worked on Scooby-Doo episodes as well, Scooby-Doo movies. And so, of course, there's the whole, like, you know, the big reveal of the, you know, they're humans. Like, it's almost like the classic mask reveal from Scooby-Doo. You know, like, we would have got away with it, too, if it hadn't been for you heroes. Like, they almost basically quote that line. Like, it was pretty hilarious to me. And there's always a random, like, sheriff or police officer who's totally clueless about everything.
So to you, that was hilarious. And to me, it felt weird.
Because it was
but I think
weird.
That, yeah. And it's because, like, it's one of those things where Young Justice does so much of, like, look at all these characters we pulled from the back catalog, but a lot of the time they work as characters and then you find out, you're like, oh, and also they were X. Whereas this, the entire time I was watching it, was like, you three are somebody and I don't know who you are,
Right.
and it's not working for me.
Oh, it didn't work for you. Oh, and
No,
see, it's hard.
it
It's hard
felt-
for me to tell because there are definitely people who like the all the early introduction of kind of the Jack Kirby Fourth World stuff didn't work for them. Like there were people who were listening to us and they were like, why, what is this, you know, these infinite people, what are they doing? And like, why are they weird? And why do they speak this way? And why is their technology always parked at a weird angle? And like, I don't understand any of this. Right. And so there are definitely these things being pulled in for that. And I can totally get that, but it's hard for me because when I saw it, and they even say Newsgirl Legion in the episode, but even before that, I was like, is that supposed to be a Velma knockoff? And then I was like looking at, it took me a while to figure it out, and then I got it, and I like them. I do like the gender swapped aspect of it, and I think it's funny that they actually gave them the echoes of the Scooby-Doo, but
I like the idea of how they tried to update that concept of
Right.
like they're using social media and it's also like I like that idea, but it just didn't gel with me. Like they felt like an awkward piece of the puzzle for that week's episode.
Oh, interesting.
Like, and I don't know why. That's
Yeah.
just how I was feeling. I was like, I like this idea, and I like the idea of having civilians on the scene who are live streaming a superhero
Right.
event. I like that.
Yeah.
I just didn't necessarily like the three characters who were doing it.
Right. They're almost too spot on for the
Yeah.
1950s or
Yeah.
whatever they were. 60s?
Yeah.
When was the... Well, the reason I brought up Jim Harper at all was because I don't think he was Guardian right at the beginning, but actually it was the Manhattan Guardian and the Newsboy Legion. So like it's the whole thing. And the Manhattan Guardian was also, I think, the name of the newspaper that they sold. So like there's a whole like thing going on with Guardian and all that. So who knows? Maybe Jim Harper becomes a small town cop. We'll see.
We don't know where Jim Harper lives.
No, we don't. We don't know what he's doing. He liked security. Maybe he'll like being a cop. I don't know. So I was intrigued by that. Yes, I can see how that might have felt a little odd and off. I was laughing, particularly with the mayor coming in and having it be Tommy's dad, which I think is funny because I think that's actually a thing in the Scooby-Doo mythos too, is that Fred's dad is the mayor. I don't know. So they were kind of merging these things together, which I think is interesting. At the end of the first episode, we get another image of Bruce Lee napping with his Kid Flash doll,
Yes.
and someone is texting.
Yes.
So it's a sleepover with Tara and Halo. So one, it's either Halo texting with Brion, which is possible, although she's kind of been avoiding him since the reveal.
That's not until the next episode.
Well, she's avoiding him in the next episode, but even in this, like as of the last episode, she was also kind of like,
You're right.
I don't. So I can see that was quite the conversation, and so then I'm either like, okay, Halo texting Brion sounds great, but her excitement for the situation is low, and if it's Tara, who is she rocking through text with? Like that's a lot of texts that she's having a conversation.
Maybe it was Artemis. Artemis is there too.
Ooh, okay. Yes. And it was Bruce Lee, who's probably sleeping in her room.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Who's
we
Artemis
might be
texting
overthinking
with?
this.
Well, I wasn't overthinking it until you said Artemis. Now I am... Who's she texting? Emily.
Rich, how would I know?
I don't know. I have all these romantic things going on in my head now, like... She's secretly dating someone? No, she couldn't be doing that. And like, my head is
Rich.
exploding. What?
Rich.
What?
No.
No.
Rich,
Okay,
no.
so see, that's what I needed you for. You could say like, no. That's it. That's all you had to say. You're the expert.
Rich, you're just going down a rabbit hole that needs to be left alone.
Okay. I'm going to move the rabbit to a different hole. I'm going to bury that hole, and we're done. Well, I don't want to bury the rabbit in the rabbit hole, but I'll cover up the rabbit hole. I warned you guys at the beginning, both of us had a weird couple of weeks. So this is the mood that we're in. And these episodes are interesting. So this is where we are. Another character, Brendan Vietti confirmed this. So you can go to Brendan Vietti's Twitter feed. There's the scene where Calder is flashing back and talking about he and Lagan had gone down and found the ship and stopped Intergang. But there's a scene right after that with a character that looks kind of like Garth, but isn't. Yeah. He's like taller and thinner with longer hair, but his outfit's kind of the same. And somebody asked Brandon if it's Wind. I'm like, I don't know who that is. So I did some research, and there's not much out there. Apparently, Wind, Wynnde, is from a comic series that was back in the early 80s, Arian, Lord of Atlantis. And if I remember correctly, Arian was one of the first kings of Atlantis. And so this was, I don't know, there's something going on there. I'm interested to find out what's going on there, but that was quite a catch. So, and I did not write down who did that. So go to Brandon's Twitter feed and you can find out who to give credit to that person. That was an amazing spot. So this I'm going to call it Proto Titans Tower that they're in now. I'm calling it. It's got to be, I mean, this is basically what that is.
Yep. It looks like it's genuinely just modeled after the 2000s Teen Titans show. Like they had that couch, I feel like.
Right. And so, but it doesn't have the T yet because that actual architectural choice is weird anyway.
Yeah.
But
that's why.
Right. Maybe if you look at it from the top down, it just looks like an O for Outsiders.
They weren't the Outsiders yet, though. They didn't pick a name yet.
No, but maybe it's, maybe that's why he picked it. He's like, our building is shaped like an O. What can I name us?
That's why the Justice League is called Weird Skyscraper Asteroid.
Yeah, basically.
That's the name of the Justice League.
Exactly.
Because you name your team after your building.
For sure. They used to be called Cave Dwellers back in the day. So anyway, you're going to have to put up with this, everybody. It's a weird time in our lives. So my point is that the Titans Tower was on the West Coast, and I believe the original Titans were based near San Francisco, but this one's probably, I'm guessing, near Los Angeles. I'm guessing, just because that's where Gar is most of the time. But I thought it was kind of cool that they like made a point of saying like, look, we've decided we're going to wake up 3 hours early to go to school on the East Coast because that's where our friends are. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. I like that idea.
I like the fact that they acknowledged that it's a problem.
Right, exactly. I mean, there are definitely other shows that would be just like, oh no, they're just Zetaing across until you think about it and go like, wait, they're going to have to get up at 4 a.m. to like, wait.
Get there at 7.
That should probably be addressed. Anyway, I'm going to save my comments about Jace for a little bit. I'm going to get to some other happier stuff. So that character with the white hair, do you know who she is?
I have no idea. I believe I simply wrote down, I am intrigued by this Aqua girl. I
am 99% sure that character is Dolphin. And Dolphin is a character from the Aquaman. She's part of the Aqua family, I guess you could put it. But she's mute. So she doesn't communicate normally, or doesn't communicate through her vocal cords. Now, whether that character originally was mute or not, like, we don't know. She was kind of screaming, though, I think. I hate to say, during that transformation. But I think what happened is she got these gills in and it, messed with her vocal cords. So the only thing we hear her say is kind of saying thank you, sort of. But when she's underwater to Beast Boy.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, so. It's like this, it's like this more like a sound she was making as opposed to like actual words. But also, Gar turned into a dolphin, like right when he dove in. So you got this dolphin thing. And so, which is really interesting. And it to me, it also opens up a whole other thing about going back to this idea that was introduced, I think, in the second season with the metagene, when they basically revealed that Atlanteans are humans, that when Atlantis went under the water, that a number of their metagenes activated and allowed them to breathe and live underwater. Now, Atlantis also is full of sorcerers, so maybe they were also magically triggering metagenes in a similar and hopefully much gentler and kinder way than Clarion is doing right here. So creating those different countries with different basically species of Atlanteans, where you've got merfolk and you've got like king shark and all of those, and then various things. So that ties into that as well, which makes me actually wonder, like, why aren't more metagene kids triggering when their metagenes triggered, becoming basically Atlanteans, So, I mean, to me, that was like a whole thing I was really excited to see, because I kept wondering, I was like, wait a minute, if this thing is Atlantean, this is how Atlantis actually formed, and some percentage of survivors survived specifically because of this, then why aren't we seeing more metagene kids with aquatic adaptations and adaptations?
Maybe it is the combination of like the sorcery and the metagene, like, because the only one we've seen with an aquatic power that we know of is Clarion.
Right.
So
yeah, maybe
the Atlanteans have maybe it's an interplay between those two things. I don't know.
Yeah, that was interesting.
I liked the acknowledgement that the Metahuman Youth Center is not equipped to handle everything. When they're just like, we don't have a solution for this one.
Right.
It's like, we can't just throw her in a big aquarium and hope for the best. We need an actual plan for this child.
Right. And she has such, I don't know, there's just more than just like her hair turned white and that kind of thing. And she's also a person of color, and Dolphin was not originally. But it wasn't just the fact that she received gills, like she got tattoos and things like that, like appeared on her skin and body, which is a very Atlantean design.
Yeah.
But that opens a bunch of questions for me. So just that one scene with her, I was like, well, what I did was like, oh, is that Dolphin? And then suddenly being absolutely horrified for like the next like 50% of the episode, and having to like recover from that and then go back to being excited about Dolphin again.
Rich.
Yeah.
Rich. Can Calder as Aquaman get a sidekick and it be her?
Oh, absolutely.
And that'd be cool. Please.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, that just passed through my brain, and I was like, that would be cool.
It would be.
That would be really
I would love it. And like I said, I mean, yes, this Tula was Aquagirl and that kind of thing, but Dolphin is, I mean, just like Batman has the Bat family, there's a bunch of characters that fit into the Aqua family as well, and Dolphin is 100% one of them as well. So I would love to see more. Of course I would. No one's surprised by this. So yeah.
Rich, are you telling me you want more aquatic adventures on a show that you enjoy? That's unheard of.
Yeah. And less super Martian kissing.
Who would ever guess?
No, wait a minute.
What?
I'm kidding. So let's move on. So the sheriff, I'm calling her sheriff, that arrested Harper and Violet on the beach, Bethany was her name. Well, and she said, say hi to Snapper for me. Snapper Carr's ex-wife is named Bethany Lee in the comics. So why not? Once again, law of conservation of DC characters. We need an officer to arrest. Oh, why don't we use a character who's probably also living in Happy Harbor, which is Bethany. I think Neal caught that as well. I know there's probably 30 things, everybody, that we are not catching yet until we rewatch it. Amongst all of the horror stuff that happened in this episode too, I did laugh out loud when I heard Clarion say, "Now that's a rutabaga." Like, I was like, I have such I am like horrified by what's happening right now in a very kind of uncomfortable way. And then I laughed, and then I was like, I am so confused right now about how I'm supposed to feel.
I believe I called that a very nice callback in a very bad scene.
It was a very rough. Yeah. Yeah. Also, we'd seen Jay Garrick at the hospital with Joan.
Yeah.
And then we have this mention about, Mrs. Garrett was so crashed too. I'm like, oh, Joan died. Oy. That was interesting. The Green Hornet reference was, I think, inevitable with Gar. It's cute. For those who may not know, the Green Hornet was a was a radio program back in the day. I don't honestly know if DC owns that license or not. There was a Green Hornet. And so back in the 60s, there was the Batman 66 show. They had a spin-off show that came out of that called the Green Hornet. And that's actually where the character Bruce Lee, like the actor Bruce Lee, came over to play Kato. That's how he started his popularity in the United States, was actually playing Kato in the Green Hornet TV show. And there's this great crossover episode where you're watching Robin from that show, quote unquote, fighting Kato. And I'm just like, oh, you could see Bruce Lee slowing everything down. Like everything had to be, there's a whole bunch of stuff I can talk about with that, because I had read part of his, a bunch of stuff about his biography and coming on the show. And it was pretty funny. Anyway, so Green Hornet reference. Zatanna.
Hi, I love Zatanna. I love that she gets to come in and be the magical girl that she is. I love that she can teleport into the Tower of Fate. That's apparently a thing that Zatanna can do.
She summoned Fate's Ankh.
Yup.
I was as shocked as Clarion, where he's like, that doesn't belong to you. Like, that's no, thank you. I don't want any of that.
But yeah, no, I'm here for it.
How?
The thing I'm not here for, that we had a conversation about this, or me and Neal were talking about this, is that I like the idea of Zatanna showing up to fight Clarion.
Yes.
I don't like necessarily how it's framed in the episode, because I feel like it should be more of an, oh no, Zatanna has to be here, this must be serious. But instead it feels like Zatanna's here, everything will be fine, we love seeing our magical girl. Like, from the other characters in the scene, rather than just from the audience. Like, no one freaks out when Zatanna shows up. They're all like, yeah, Zatanna's here. I'm like, y'all should be way more worried that Zatanna felt the need to crash your mission.
That's a really interesting point, actually. I didn't think about that, but in retrospect, when you're bringing that up, I did feel that. Like, Zatanna should be more, like, when Fate shows up, everybody's jaw drops and everybody gets concerned about what's happening right now. Yeah, I think I would have liked that as well.
I think Neal brought up even the fact that it's like, if we had just not seen her have that conversation with Calder near the beginning of the episode, that impact might have worked more. Because, like, if we hadn't known, Zatanna's going to show up, we would have been more worried, maybe? Because, like, the stakes of that episode feel like they should be high, but don't feel high to me as a viewer. And maybe it's just because I've been in a mood this week. But watching it, I'm like, that's a giant horrifying flesh monster, and Clarion is literally like a chaos
basically
demon.
A god, yeah.
We should be very worried. I'm not really that worried.
And I think you're right. I think it's because the team wasn't worried.
They're just like, oh yeah, Cuba, we'll just take on Clarion. This is fine. I'm like, no.
Do you have a plan for that?
No.
Like, it is Clarion. Yeah.
You have no magic
and so I guess I felt the same way that Zatanna did, which was like,
yeah,
what are you doing? And McGann, in retrospect, McGann saying like, no, they can handle it. But at the time the conversation was happening, I was like, I don't know what they're doing.
Right.
But in retrospect, again, like, I'm like, yeah, McGann, wait, what? Like, McGann, was that really true? Maybe I do need to watch it a third time to kind of go through that episode again. The first time I watched it, I was in the middle of doing some other things, so I got the general idea just so I didn't get spoiled on some stuff. And then I walked away with it feeling a little bit strange, but again, had a very kind of weird week. And then so I rewatched it again, and I was like, okay, I'm starting to get more of this episode than I did before, now that I kind of know what's happening.
And I feel like I could understand before they actually know what Clarion is doing. It feels like they send everybody in without actually quite knowing what Clarion's doing. I could feel like I could see McGann being like, well, we took on Clarion when we were their age. It'll be fine. Not realizing what Clarion's doing. But the fact that even once we see what Clarion's doing, everyone in that group is like, it's fine. We'll just handle it. And then Zatanna shows up and they don't act surprised or even angry. Like, no one's even like, why is the League crashing our mission? They're just like, yay, Zatanna. We love Zatanna. And I'm like, I love Zatanna. I don't know why you're all so calm about Zatanna showing up.
Yeah.
I feel like you should be more worried.
Right. Well, I'm thinking back on it. So even in like Misplaced, no, they faced Clarion. They didn't beat Clarion.
No.
Until, I don't know, Zatanna and Fate both showed up. Right. So, yeah, I don't know. This is interesting. I'm going to have to do a lot more sitting with, actually, I think both of these episodes, but this one in particular. The thing about, so let's see if I have any other that's kind of more lighthearted stuff. I actually love the fact that she trapped him in the Tower of Fate and he can't get out. Like, part of me is like, well, he's Clarion. He should be able to just teleport to another dimension. But I kept thinking about it. I'm like, I don't think he can. I think he's trying to teleport, quote unquote, out of the Tower of Fate. But there is no out of the Tower of Fate. The Tower of Fate is its own existence. It's its own dimension. He keeps trying to teleport outside the walls, but outside the walls, quote unquote, doesn't exist. So he keeps trying to teleport to another location in the reality that he's in, and he just keeps going in circles.
I also thought it was just a like magical incompatibility thing of like, this is a thing you can't mess with.
Yeah, I mean, and Clarion does say he's like, okay, this is not good. Like, this is his place of power. This could be bad. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I also wonder if I had some other thoughts about this too. I wonder if Zatara during one of those 1 hour meetings, like, basically gave Zatanna a key to the house. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to do this, research this thing over here. You know, and then she can go and look it up and figure out how to get in there if she needs to, kind of a thing, which I think is interesting.
Or I could see her finding it on her own. I personally have imagined Zatanna spending the last 7 years intensely researching Dr. Fate.
100%.
I don't think her dad needs to hand her a key. I think she went and dug one up somewhere.
And you know, as soon as I said that, I was like, yeah, but Fate would know still. So I am absolutely on board with you about Zatanna going like, oh no, I'm breaking into this house. Also, forget you, Fate. I'm dropping Clarion in your house. No one wants Clarion in their house, right?
He's your problem.
Now he's your problem. You deal with him.
I also personally, that like the end credit scene, I kind of wanted them to just have tiny little Zatanna just like walk out the front door.
Oh, that would be
like,
great.
I feel like Zatanna can just leave.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I feel like this isn't a problem for her.
No, that's really funny. I don't know. I disproportionately, I think, love that Ed joins the Outsiders. I was like, hey, that's. I feel like I should have said like, hey, that's cool. Ed's joining the Outsiders, but instead I was like, yes. I don't know why. I was just so like everything Ed said made sense to me, and I was like, this has to happen. And also, you know, El Dorado, this character from the Super Friends, you know. Like, as we've talked about, that he's this character, it's like, I want to see, I have this like thing for teleporters too. I don't know why. Nightcrawler, huge for me. Character friend of mine played one of our Champions games. His name was Prediction. He was a teleporter as well. And he had precognitive abilities, but he could only see the future, like trends within like a few seconds ahead of time. But it made him an incredibly good combatant because he could see what people were doing seconds before they were doing it. And then he would teleport around and, you know, that opening scene, like people would tell me like, why do you like Nightcrawler? And then that opening scene in the second X-Men movie where he just takes out all these people using the acrobatics and the teleporting. Like, I love that kind of thinking about how to choreograph something like that with a teleporter who's really skilled. I want to see him do that. I want to see that kind of stuff, because at first you look at him and you're like, well, he can just teleport from place to place. And I'm like, no, I want to see, I think Ed is smart. I think he's really cool and interesting, and I want to see more of him. So I say disproportionately because I think the show wanted me to be happy that he's joining the Outsiders and thinking it's cool. And I was degrees of magnitude more excited about that. So I love it. I don't know why, but I'm going to find out why. I think everyone will know why eventually. I'll be the Ed hipster for him joining the Outsiders. I loved Ed before it was cool. Anyway, let's see. What else do I have here? I think that's all my kind of lighter stuff. So let's get into the heavier stuff a little bit.
Or we could do my lighthearted stuff.
Yes. Let's do that.
So, looping back around to episode 17? Yeah, 17, for some lighthearted stuff. When Gar has his whole speech, I like that Superboy just sighs when he gets quoted. He's like, I really did that 7 years ago, didn't I? Wow.
Yeah, that was a good one. Ugh. Why does all this stuff keep coming back to me?
They're all just like, wow, we were these kids 7 years ago. Oh, gosh. It's hard being the adults. And even Artemis's line where she's like, and I'm guessing we're too old.
Yeah.
When did that happen? I'm like, I feel you. I love this. I love that they're just like, what do you mean we're the adults in the room? No, we're still 17 and don't know what we're doing. I also I disproportionately really enjoyed like the tour of the Titans Tower scene. I just really, I was like, I would watch another 10 minutes of you just showing me all of the random stuff that's in Titan's Tower. This is just cute and wholesome and made me smile.
Yep.
Of everybody's got a little name tag.
And Vic in the background is like, yes, I get to ruin it myself. Booyah. Yeah.
They're all so excited. I love the little name tags. I love I love Beast Boy just being like, look at all this cool stuff I bought with my TV money. It's fun and adorable. I also love that this season, every now and then, just randomly goes, can we talk for a second about how it was probably a stupid idea to let two 16-year-olds live together unsupervised? They just keep calling themselves out.
Red Tornado was there, sort of.
Red Tornado was a very hands-off dead mother.
He was.
He lived in the ceiling and left everyone else alone.
Uh-huh.
Just having Artemis being like, yeah, no, it's an awful idea. What could possibly happen? And McGann just pushes her. It's just like, behave. And Connor just looks in a different direction. He's like, I'm not participating in this. I loved that. I loved all of that. We'll get into Jace and how we feel about her later. But I felt bad for poor Forager having to say goodbye to Bioship.
I did too.
I don't know what is up with all of that, but they're friends and it's cute. I like it. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was really cute that they continue to acknowledge that Bioship is a living sentient creature, because she has a little wave of acknowledgement and noise when he's hugging her. They animated it. It was real cute. I have emotions about a spaceship. And the continued trend of apparently every Young Justice social media platform is just a pun. The live streaming website that the Newsgirl Legion, I realized in my second watch through, the live streaming website they're using is called iSpasm because it's a play on Twitch.
Whoa. Emily.
Yeah.
What?
Yep. Look in the corner if you rewatch the episodes when McGann is like, hey Gar, look at this. And she pulls up the live stream. I noticed in the corner of it just says iSpasm in a logo font.
As many times as I've been on Twitch, none of that occurred to me. You just blew my mind. Wow.
So with that episode, after all of the stuff that happens in that episode, this is a random thing, but I like the fact that everyone in the group was able to break out of handcuffs, that they just have that skill in different ways. They found a unique way for every single one of them to break out of handcuffs. I almost wanted like an Artemis style character who doesn't have any powers to just be there and have to be like, can someone else help, please? I'm the only one who can't do this.
Well, I looked at Bart and I was like, we've literally seen you get out of handcuffs. That's actually happened in the show. So.
Which I think is fun because it points out that all of them were just going along with it. They're like, we will let you arrest us.
Right.
You can't arrest us. We are letting you arrest us.
You can arrest us again after we save your town again. I love that.
Yes.
That was so good.
Aside from the whole Newsgirl Legion thing that we were talking about before, the one thing I kind of didn't like about that episode, because I liked a lot about episode 17, getting that scene at the end, that's all of the like team leaders together, felt frustrating in that way that sometimes scenes from season 1 with the light felt frustrating, where you're like, oh, all of this stuff has happened, and then the light is like exactly according to plan. And seeing that from the heroes is somehow even more frustrating, because you expect it with the villains, but then you get this scene with the heroes where they're all like, we basically staged this fight to let these kids have a presence. And I'm like,
it is real manipulative.
That's really annoying, because it both, like, it's manipulative to them, but it also, for us as a viewer, is like, well, that devalues their skill and their abilities like a lot now. But I think what saved it for me and made it so I didn't fully just like flip a table and be like, really, and move on, was the fact that they pointed out that there was part of that they couldn't have predicted, that they weren't prepared for, and that the teen heroes came along and just fixed it.
Yeah.
That there was a part of that the League was like, oh, we had no idea that was going to happen. The kids are just that good.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, good. Thank you for giving me one thing that I can point at and be like, look what they did.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't really think about that until you brought it up, and I agree. And it actually,
sorry.
No, not at all. It just rolls into, it kind of does roll into some of my Jace stuff. So I'm going to let you finish some of your other stuff first, though.
That's most of my lighthearted stuff. I think my one other positive, especially from episode 18, was, despite the fact that it did make me sad on a very deep level, the fact that they had that continuity nod of acknowledging that Mrs. Garrett's funeral.
Yeah.
And like actually the fact that there were multiple members of the team that needed to go to that, and acknowledging that that's part of their lives and everything. Like, I liked that from an emotional storytelling standpoint, even though it hurt and made me sad. And I always occasionally just every now and then I'm like, I wish I lived in a world where the Young Justice timeline like didn't progress every now and then, because sometimes you just want to sit with your heroes and let them stay where they are.
Yeah.
But I liked it from an emotional storytelling standpoint, and like acknowledging that continuity and having that be a part of their lives. I liked that, even if it hurt me.
I have to say, like, something that really simple happened that really I liked a lot was Virgil he kept forgetting, and there was a part of that where I was like, Virgil, why you keep doing this? Like, it felt kind of a little bit awkward, but the thing at the end where Bart walks up to him and just has a smile, where Virgil's like, I'm a mess and I feel so bad. And Bart didn't even say anything. He just walked up and gave his friend a smile, and then you have a couple of guys hugging. Like, just hugging, and that's good, and it's okay. And I loved that, you know?
I also really liked that. I agree.
Yeah. More emotionally supportive male characters, please. Love that. Well.
But speaking of dying, I don't know. I don't know what our segue is here.
I don't know.
Let's get into Jace.
I have definitely moved from like being almost hilariously scared of Jace, to the beginning of the episode where she told Halo that she was dying. I just went to hate. I absolutely hate her. Now I've gone from like, ooh, I'm worried about what you're going to do. And it took me a minute to realize, like, okay, I could see this coming. Like, what is my emotional reaction to what happened in this scene? It's not like I've trusted her the whole time, right? And it's the leading question manipulating an innocent person. It's just worse, because the leading question of just like, well, it's up to you if we worry them. Oh, yeah. Really?
And the fact that she says worry them.
Yeah.
She doesn't say it's up to you whether or not you tell the rest of the team.
Exactly.
It's up to you whether or not we worry everyone else with your diagnosis that might not even stay this way. I'm like, you are telling a person that has shown a tendency toward panic and toward emotional reactions that she shouldn't worry anyone with this.
Yeah.
And that's horrible.
It's bad. I don't like it. I do not in any way believe that Halo's dying. I don't at all.
Neither do I.
And you know what?
Neither do I.
Still, aside from the leading questions, which I think are really, really kind of rewarding us? I don't know, for our paranoia about Jace. Like, it seems clearly that's what's going on. Neal continues to point out, and I think he's doing it to be contrary in many ways, but he's also pointing out still hasn't done anything wrong. We know why she got the hair.
Except everything,
right? The someone had mentioned on Twitter too this idea that Jace could be researching the regenerative powers of Halo to try and help Vic. And I'm like, wow, that's a really interesting idea too. And then, but this,
except she's a horrible person, and I don't like
her at all. Yeah.
And the fact that even from a logic standpoint, what she does doesn't make any sense if she's a good person.
Yeah.
Because why would you not bring this to the League that is full of multiple super scientists who could help? Why wouldn't you bring this to the adult authority figures in Halo's life who might be able to help her process this emotionally? Yeah. Why wouldn't you use all the resources at your disposal to help a young, impressionable teenager? Why wouldn't you do any of this unless you're a horrible human being?
Yeah, absolutely. So I absolutely agree with all of this. I definitely have gone from like, ooh, what is she going to do, to no, I absolutely hate everything about you and who you are and what you're doing in the world. And I don't know if how comfortable I am with that. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't like Sportsmaster. I don't like him. Right? But I don't like him within the context of the show. Sportsmaster, I don't think Sportsmaster lies direct. Like, the implication is that he manipulated Artemis and everything else. The implication is clearly there. I get that. But there's something about the directness of Jace and how uncomfortable it makes me with this, innocent person. Anyway.
And there's something about how Sportsmaster, it feels like both Sportsmaster and everyone who interacts with Sportsmaster know what's up.
Yeah.
He can be manipulative, he can be awful, but everybody is a well-informed participant in that conversation. Right. Jace is awful and pretending not to be to a person who trusts her.
Right. Yeah.
And I hate it.
I don't like it either. Well, we'll see how that blows up in Jace's face. We'll see. Let's talk about the beach scene for a minute. So I knew that Harper Row comes from a bad family. So I knew that she came from a broken home, at least in the comics. She came from a broken home. Her brother was saved by Batman from a bunch of people beating him up because he was gay. She's there and seeing what happens and starts to turn her life around. Her father ends up in jail. Her mother had died when they were younger. Like, I knew that there was this stuff from the comics. But then I saw the Harper Row at school and I was like, wow, she's really like friendly and kind. Like, she's kind of helping these people and I really liked her. This escalated really fast for me. Yeah. Like, even though I'm looking at it and going like, no, I get it. That is the Harper Row character right there, even more so than the previous view of that character. This was a jump. Yeah.
She went from, we sit on the bleachers alone and don't like the cheerleaders, to, I have a gun and a bottle of whiskey. And I'm like, that's a lot of a jump right there. Yeah. Your outcast levels skyrocketed off screen somewhere when I wasn't looking.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And there were some other things. I mean, Zara Fuzzle had posted, like, I have a lot to say about this scene, but I can't because it gets into spoilery territory. So, again, I'm trusting the writers, because they've earned that trust over years, to move in a direction that I'll understand, I hope. But as far as just this episode in and of itself, again, with the same kind of realism of like, oh, I get why this is happening because I understand the character and this makes sense, but it still hurts, is her saying, I'm not a Muslim. And there's this ambiguity in my feelings. I'm like, oh no, she's not, right? Like, the Mother Box did not make this choice. The Mother Box does not maybe even grasp or understand that human, concept of religion and, I guess piety or whatever within that particular religion. So hasn't chosen to do that. But for some reason, it kind of almost erases the earlier comment she said about her hijab. and about saying like it feels right. And maybe it's because she didn't get enough memories back by that time about who Gabrielle Dow is. Maybe she's fighting against that. You and I were talking about that a little bit. Like she's fighting against this identity of this other person and, you know, this kind of thing. And it's complicated for her. And I get it. Like and when I intellectually analyze it, I kind of understand the scene better, but it didn't make me feel great at all.
And and it's also part of it is like that a hijab is a religious garment. It is part of a religion. So like seeing someone who goes, no, I'm not part of that religion, but is still wearing that feels wrong and feels almost disrespectful in that way. And it's again, I want to see how this episode falls in the context of the season and see how that plays out and see if this is like her having a moment and like coming to terms with that or deciding, no, this is the way that I want to go. Like, I want to see where it goes, especially because of what Zara has said on Twitter and everything. And I trust Zara with this. But
and so I have another observation. So I grew up in a pretty like buckle of the Bible Belt kind of community, and I am now old enough that I can reflect on the spiritual paths of people I went to high school with, who went to college, made some choices, made some decisions, and then came back to the core base foundation of the religion that they had grown up with that spent time questioning all of that. And I can see that going like, oh no, I'm a Christian or I'm a Muslim. So I've seen people go through these things, right? People that I look at now, it's a thing that when you're like a kid and you realize your parents have not always been like, the parents are saying, we're trying to demonstrate to you how you should live life, how we want you to live life, like the good person you want to be. And then you find out that they used to like, you know, boost a case of alcohol over a fence into concerts or whatever in high school. Right. And you're like, wait, what? It's incongruous with what's happening. And so again, intellectually, I'm looking at this and I'm going like, she's rebelling. She's depressed. She's finding out she's going to die. She's not in the right body. She's like, and all because of this thing that she does. And like, what's going to happen to her when she has no mother box to go to if the body dies? And does she really even want to be in this body? Like there's like in the history of this body, and I'm just like, there's so much going on. I totally get it. But man, there was like no lead into this. I was like, what is happening? Yeah. And also I was like, oh, okay. So we get a same-sex kiss. Yeah.
I want to unpack that for a second.
Yeah.
If you'll let me. Because I know I was messaging you guys about it, of like, my first thought after watching this episode was, I wish I could celebrate the first same-sex kiss the first non-straight kiss on Young Justice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good way to put it.
But I can't.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I have no problem with Halo or Harper being bi or pan or poly or anything like that. Like,
yeah, of course.
What that's not my problem. What I do have a problem with is the fact that the first explicitly non-straight relationship that we get, that is like, you can't frame this as anything else, is framed in the context of literal delinquency and is equated with the same self-destructive behaviors as
alcohol,
underage
firearms,
drinking and playing with a gun. And it's also framed as Halo cheating on Brion. And like, it's just not, it's not great. It doesn't feel great. It doesn't, I don't like it. And I feel bad. I just,
I feel you.
It's not great. And it's, again, I need to see this episode in the context of the full season before I can fully judge it. I feel like when we come back to this episode for full breakdowns, we may have something different to say.
Yeah.
But it's like, I wish this wasn't the first, and I wish this wasn't the only on Young Justice.
I agree.
Because like, not every LGBT form of representation has to be a quote unquote good relationship, but when that's the only relationship of this kind that you've showed on the show, it feels bad.
It doesn't feel great. Absolutely.
And I know I'm not part of this community. I don't want to speak as if I am. I'm just from my perspective as an ally, just trying to be like, this isn't great from what I understand about how these things should be presented and gone about. It doesn't feel great.
And you know, we were talking about this, and we were talking about this too, this thing of like, if Ed and Bart were a couple, and that had been like an obvious situation there, then this might not have had that same impact.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking like, okay, clearly the powers that be don't have an issue with showing a same-sex kiss or whatever is happening right here in this scene.
Yeah.
So I'm like, then why wouldn't they show Ed and Bart? Because the more I think about it, the more I'm looking at this, and I'm just like, I think that's what was supposed to happen. And I'm thinking like, Ed's a whole new character, right? So they're not going to care. Like DC's like, new character, whatever they are, right? Harper, I think, is canonically bi in the comics. Somebody can correct me on that. I'm not an expert on Harper Row. But Bart's been around for a long time. And, you know, I'd have to reflect. And they've done the reboot on the 52 as well. And they have changed in DC Comics, updated sexual orientations of characters. Like Calder, in his representation in the comics, who's a kind of a different character, but basically is exactly the same. He's basically just the serial numbers are filed off, same character. That character is gay in the comics.
Yeah, I believe so.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, absolutely Calder could be bi or pan, poly, whatever it happens to be. So I'm just having this hard time of like thinking like, I don't know, maybe it was just because Bart was more established over a longer period of time that somebody said, hey, you know, we don't want to do that. I don't know. It's confusing. It's confusing. But anyway, my point is that if that was a thing and that was intended to be a thing and it was more explicit, then this would not have had the same impact. But the fact that was changed like within an episode or two, you know, or that wasn't shown within an episode or two of this ends up being that first one. So I don't know.
So yeah, that's some thoughts. I didn't love episode 18. We'll revisit it when we see it in context of the full season, and maybe some of my problems with it will shake out and make sense. Yeah. But felt a little scattered and felt a little body horror and felt a little bit like that scene didn't gel with me.
I got some thoughts on the body horror thing too. Like it was uncomfortable, but
I kept not looking at my screen.
Right. The first time I was watching it, like I said, I was watching it in bits and pieces throughout a day, and I was like, what? And then I rewatched it all together, and I didn't have as much of a visceral reaction as I did the first time. But also, it was kind of reflective of me where we were talking earlier about this idea. I think I even did a Canary debrief on the idea that comics can show so many different kinds of genres of story. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, man, there is something very Akira about this particular scene and how it's being shown. It's like there's an anime like section of this episode that's being presented, and that was interesting to me. Again, intellectually, it all made sense with Clarion and like how he would do things and that kind of thing. The whole episode itself, as a whole, I walked away less excited and just feeling uncomfortable and kind of icky. I don't know what the word is. So I think you're right. I think when we go back and watch with the context, I mean, because even with Jace saying like, so I just don't believe Jace. First of all, like I made that clear. Yes. I don't believe her. But her statement of like, oh, each time you're recovering from like these major traumatic incidences, it's taking away from your overall lifespan. I was like, oh, if that's a thing, then now we kind of know why, from a storyline season standpoint, she was taking so much traumatic damage. But it wasn't comfortable in the moment, and we talked about that when it was happening, that it was just happening a lot and almost too much. But then it leads into this plot line, which is possible. But then again, I think she's lying through her teeth. So I'm not sure. So I don't know. I want to see what the next episode was. And I almost feel like this is almost a time where before, when we were talking about like the original, like the first 13 episodes they were releasing 3 episodes at a time every week or 4 episodes at a time. We got chunks. Yeah. And I was thinking like, I wonder how this is affecting us. If it had been week by week by week, how we would have absorbed some of these episodes. Right. And this one, I'm because I was like, why are you doing that? Like, give us week to week. I love the anticipation. I love the not quite knowing, that kind of thing. And this one, I'm like, man, I need the next episode right now. Like,
Right?
I need another episode right now to bookend, because I think I enjoyed 17. Sounds like more than you did. I was getting more. I was finding.
I liked 17. There was a lot I liked about 17.
I think I was getting more humor than confusion than you, I guess. Like, I understand where you were like, seems a little strange with these kids. I was kind of laughing at that. And then I got this heavy episode and I'm kind of like, I need some Bowhunter security right now. I got to have a palate cleanse. Like, even with the first 3 episodes that were so intense of this season that were so intense, I got to the end and I felt like there was some closure to those 3 episodes. I'd finished an arc and I was curious what was going to happen, but I was also like excited and shocked and I needed the Bowhunter. This one, I need Bowhunter, the next episode, to be Bowhunter real bad. And I don't know. And hopefully I'll get to see it this weekend, actually, at San Diego Comic-Con.
It's like episode 17. There were parts of it I really liked, and the parts of it that I didn't necessarily like as much, I just kind of brushed off as like, that didn't work for me, but whatever. There's enough in this that I really like. Yeah. Whereas episode 18, it was like, there were parts I liked, and there was a majority that just made me feel bad.
Yeah.
Which is not what I want from my morning television.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's kind of I think that's pretty much all of my stuff. We'll just have to see what pans out. Anyway, let's take a look and see what Neal has to say. I already mentioned some of his J stuff. Scooby-Doo vibes, of course. He says Beast Boy's acting chops really pays off when laying down speeches. That's a really good point. Like, he is a great face character for the group, which I think is great.
And he basically had a PowerPoint presentation all ready to go.
He sure did. He knows what's up. He says bold choice, letting Intergang take 3 warbugs, but that worked out. He says Jace was honest about the hairbrush, and it seems for good cause. Jace did nothing wrong yet.
We don't know if she was honest about the hairbrush.
I don't know either. I don't believe that at all.
Neal?
He does say who is the mentor? Eek. That's one of the things he said. Let's see. Oh no. Wow.
Yep. Read it.
I'm just going to read this and let you guys all process it how you want to process it. Quote, also, I see why it was called Project Rutabaga now, as the rutabaga is a root vegetable that originated as a cross between the cabbage and the turnip. Unquote. I have no words. He says he can't wait to see what Zatanna's spells are. They were really long. He said some of the longest so far, and I agree with him. I'm going to let somebody else translate that. I'm sure it's going to be on the YJ Wiki soon.
Somebody asked Greg Weisman on Twitter.
They did.
What the script said.
Oh, somebody asked.
No, I'm saying somebody should ask.
Oh, got you. I figured somebody already asked. I don't know. We'll see. I will see him this weekend, which will have been last weekend because this airs after Con. If I remember, I'll ask him. New metas? Yeah. I'm like, I don't have time. I don't have time for the Scream Something to figure out who all these metas are. I got Dolphin. That's what you got right now. He says, well, the scene with Harper definitely illustrates not being on Cartoon Network does indeed allow for a lot tougher topics about being a teenager, but that was some fast escalation. And I agree with that. We've already talked that one. Bethany Lee, he also made the same observation I did. And this next thing I think I'll put in Crashing the Mode. But he said maybe his favorite credit scene so far, and I'm sure he's talking about Clarion teleporting around the tower, which is great.
I agree. I really like that one. It's up there with Bruce Lee with the Kid Flash plushie.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, let's wrap that up. Let's head into a mid-roll and then crash some modes.
Welcome to the Fake Your Own Death Club. Its membership is very exclusive, and I'm the president.
Hello, team, and welcome to the mid-roll. I apologize for my voice being so quiet. It got a little worn out over the weekend. Where was I? San Diego Comic-Con. And the first thing I have to say is, we got Season 4. For those who may not have heard, this past weekend at San Diego Comic-Con, Greg and Brandon announced that Season 4 had been greenlit. So what does that mean? Well, just like last time, this means that the season has been okayed to be created. It does not mean that they are already in production. Animation takes a long time. Plotting, episode writing, then storyboarding and voice acting, then the animation process, followed by editing, sound effects, music. It took 2 years to get us Season 3. Unlike last time, though, there's a much fresher production team in place coming directly off of Season 3. Bottom line, the new season will not be soon. It may not even be next year. So, we here at Whelmed encourage everyone to practice patience and respect to the creators, and to also help remind others how long the process takes. I'm confident the team will get us excellent new episodes as soon as they can produce them with quality. Speaking of Comic-Con, producer Neal, assistant editor Richard, and I were at Con throughout the weekend, along with Michael Greenway, aka Dark Superboy on YouTube, Ariel Horn from YoungJustice.tv, Joshua Lappin-Bertoni from DCUniverse.com, and others. We got to spend time with Zeno Robinson, Cam Bowen, Greg Weisman, Stephanie Lemlin, Jason Spizak, Zara Fuzzle, Beth Payne, and more of the cast and crew. If you'd like to see some photos from the weekend, you can link over to @TheYJ-Files on Twitter or our Facebook page @CrashingTheMode. We'd also like to share a new 5-star review. This one from T. Montgomery 12. This has to be my favorite podcast. It talks about one of my favorite shows of all time, and they give such a deep insight of it and give perspectives about the episodes that I haven't thought about before. It's amazing. Thank you, T. Montgomery. We appreciate it. We also want to welcome 3 new Patreon members: Dead Serious, the Block Party Podcast Network, and Rick Jones. Thank you, Sirius. Thank you to the team at the Dungeon Masters Block and the Block Party Network. And thank you, Rick, former sidekick to Captain America, Hulk, Rom the Space Knight. We appreciate you jumping universes to join Sirius and the DMB in Gamma Squad. And with all that out of the way, let's get back to the show.
Tell us something we don't know yet.
Sorry, BB. We can't risk altering the time stream. We do that, we're all feeling the mode.
In Crashing the Mode, we'll be discussing potential storylines running through our heads based on the episodes released at the time of recording. This Crashing the Mode is based on episodes, is it 18 now? Episode 1 through 18? 18, there it is. What Neal said was, because we have talked about the possibility, the theory, the hypotheses, that this Tara might actually be Macomb. And he says, I don't think there is any way that Tara is Macomb at this point. And I actually have to agree with him. That scene where she flashes back and she sees she's training with Deathstroke, I was like, oh, well, there it is. Our theories, for me, my headcanon's gone on that front. So I don't know. I don't think it is.
So I have 2 Crashing the Mode things. I agree with you. I don't think it's Macomb either. Mm-hmm. Who knows? We'll see. Tinfoil hats all the way. My 2 Crashing the Mode things are, one simply says, is a quote from Jace, where when she volunteers to be Den Mother, says something like, "It'll be so nice to live together like a family." And all I wrote was, "This is why no one trusts you, Helga." Because I'm like, that's weird. You're saying that to Brion and everybody, and it's weird. It's weird. Along those same lines, another random weird cutaway to Jace, because I keep noticing those, where people will say things and the camera, quote unquote camera, because it's an animated show, will cut away to show Jace where, like, you wouldn't necessarily need to, but they want us to know that she's hearing things.
And not just hearing things, like, she had no reaction to, like, oh, Violet's not here. She wasn't worried like a mother. She was like, uh-huh.
Red Tornado would have been worried.
Right, exactly.
Red Tornado is a good Den Mother, and he would have been worried if someone was like, McGann's not here because she's just hanging out with some people that we know maybe aren't the best influences.
Yeah, for sure.
Red Tornado would be worried about his kids.
Right.
The other thing is, talking about Tara, we get that whole flashback scene of her training with Deathstroke, and I kind of like that, and I like that Artemis, like, reaches out to her, and you have that little moment between them.
Yeah.
That's nice. And we hear a little more about Artemis and her backstory and all that. And I like that. But the fact that Tara gets defensive about her previous training feels odd. And the fact that Artemis only says, yeah, before your cage match, somebody taught you something, feels odd. Because doesn't the team know that she was, at least briefly, part of the League of Shadows?
So this is what I remember. I'm thinking about this while I didn't see your notes earlier, so I'm thinking about this. So I'm a little off the cuff here. They did not know and have confirmation that it was Tara who killed Marlowe.
No.
She did say, if I remember correctly, to Brion, like, I've been made to do terrible things or something. And he says, we understand, you were controlled, we get it, it's fine. But no specific conversation about what those terrible things were.
Yeah.
And so in that conversation, I was thinking, like, did they ask her? Like, did you kill Marlowe? Was this you? Right? Or what did you need to do? Like, why is she not talking to Canary about this trauma? Yeah. Also, did Brion not tell their brother? Like, how does Gregor not know?
That's a real good question.
Like, that she's fine and she's with them now? Like, that's not a communication that was had? Because that's messed up. And she's not on the public team, right?
What I was going to say was, didn't Batman overhear Cassandra asking about Tara? Wasn't that one of the things Batman heard?
Yes, absolutely.
And Nightwing says, like, we have confirmation that she was on Santa Prisca. So, like, the team knows that that was a thing she did. They don't know how much she did, but they know that she had training with the Shadows.
Right.
So it feels weird to me that Artemis doesn't say that.
Well, she kind of does, though. Because she doesn't say you were part of the Shadows. We know that. She does say, like, well, clearly you've had training. Like, you've been trained. So whatever happened with you on Santa Prisca, someone gave you training. But here's the thing that gets me. There are all these metahumans out there, like Holocaust for that matter, like out there doing stuff. And she was 2 years right after the metagenes were discovered. She was in their possession for 2 years. You can't tell me they don't know that she has had more training, quote unquote, than that. And her first reaction is like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, he's like,
Tara's training? I've never had training.
Tara's trying to blow off this idea that she had any training at all, even though that they know that and it's obvious. And I'm like, ooh, that was a bad lie. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. That interaction was interesting, but it does. I honestly think it blows our Macomb thing out of the water. So.
Your Macomb thing.
Ours. Definitely ours.
Yours.
Okay, fine. I'll take that one myself. Though it wasn't originally my idea, I just bought into it full.
You were just like, I fully believe this. I was like,
I was on for that ride, that's for sure. And here's the other thing, you're like, why? Okay, I've said since the beginning, you introduce hardware, right?
Yeah, no, I was the thing I was talking about for you.
Yeah, so hardware is kind of like the Tony Stark, right, of the Milestone comics. My emotional memory had him being more cybernetic, but I don't think it is. I went back and did some more research and realized I think he's just armored. He has this armor. But the armor is this highly advanced nanotech armor that's from the Collective, which is the same alien group that Rocket, the technology that Rocket uses for her powers, right? And Icon gets his powers from that, not from the technology. I think his is natural, but so you've got hardware who has like this intimate knowledge of nanotechnology and its interaction with the human body. Like that is what hardware does. I mean, even beyond Steel. Like Steel is also kind of like a Tony Stark-ish almost. He's like the everyman Tony Stark. So he's still got armor knowledge, but specifically alien technology, nanotechnology, interaction with human neurologic systems is basically what hardware is the world's leading expert on. And they're not bringing hardware in. Like hardware sets up the lab, like introduces Jace to the lab. But why is hardware not involved? I want to see more hardware.
And no one's talking to Adam. No one's talking to Bumblebee. No one's talking to any of the multiple scientists we have just sitting around.
Absolutely. And I get that. But even with like Bumblebee and like the Atom, like they've got that nanotechnology understanding kind of a thing. But there's just something like, I'm looking at hardware and I just keep every single time. I'm like, hardware needs to be mentoring Vic or trying to be involved with Vic in his alien technology interaction with neurologic systems. Like it is just boom. Like that should just be a given of what's happening there because of his level of expertise. You know?
So what I'm hearing is don't trust Jace because she won't ask for help.
I'm just shaking my head, guys. I don't even know what to say. Also, I want more I want more hardware, clearly.
I think that's everything. I think we've covered all of our
complicated
feelings about these episodes.
Absolutely. The ups and downs of our emotional states in these episodes. So we'll have to see. Again, let's reflect on this. It'll be interesting in the individual episodes when we reflect on them in context, like you say.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right. Well, with that, let's Zeta out of the Watchtower and into the Titans Tower.
The Premier Building.
Oh, yeah, that too. That's what it's called. Yeah.
Whatever that place is called. The Outsider Oasis.
Ooh, that's a good one. I was going to say the Outsider's Outpost, but I like the Oasis better. Nice. We got to get the alliteration going on. And with that, let's get out of here so people can just not have us listen to us be who we are today. Thank you for spending some time with us and putting up with us this week. If you'd like to join us in discussing this incredible series, you can find us on Twitter at the YJ Files, on Facebook at Crashing the Mode, on Tumblr at the YJFiles.tumblr.com, and our website, crashingthemode.com. And if that's not enough, you can email us at whelmedpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify, and iHeartRadio.
If you'd like to support our show, please consider sharing it with a friend and joining our chats on social media. You can also support the show by giving us a 5-star review and or rating on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. The ratings, comments, and subscriptions help others find the show. If you do leave us a rating, please let us know at our email address or on social media, especially if you live outside the US, because we have to look a little harder to find those ones. So make our job a bit easier, please.
If you're able to support us monetarily, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/crashingthemode. Even $1 a month can help us do in-person interviews, actual play podcasts, fan meetups, discussion sessions, and more.
And remember,
stay whelmed, everyone.
You've been listening to Whelmed, the Young Justice Files podcast. Our hosts are Rich Howard and Emily Booza. Our editor and producer is Neal Powell. Our theme was composed by Emily Mio. Our logo was created by Kevin Bates. Whelmed is a fan-made podcast and is not officially affiliated with DC Comics, DC Entertainment, Warner Brothers Animation, and any other owners of Young Justice or its related source material. As such, these companies have sole ownership of all symbols, images, names, logos, and proprietary material related to Young Justice. Original content of this podcast is ours under Creative Commons. Thanks for listening, and stay whelmed.